runs these trips, Global Aid Network, and she mentioned it to me, and took a lot of time to think about it and pray about it. And in January of this past year, I went to Pastor Josh and I said, I want to go on this trip. And I think God's calling me to go on this trip, and so I want to do everything I can to make it happen. And so then, as you guys know, I presented in front of you guys to help raise support and to help raise support for my trip. And that was just the start of it. And I can't thank everybody enough for all the thoughts and prayers and financial support that was given to me. It really helped a lot. And I know there was something in the bulletin, but I was able to give $700 US, so it transferred to about 500 euros directly to the camp, to Euro Relief, which was the organization that we worked with there, because of all the extra support that was raised by you guys and everybody else that supported me. So thank you guys for that. So what I'm going to do is just give a little background about the trip, my group that I went with, and then tell a few stories, and then kind of tell how it impacted me, and then I'll leave like 15 to 20 minutes for questions at the end. So this is my group. There was 11 of us. I was one of 2 guys that went. There's not many guys that do mission trips in this organization. So there was 11 of us. Most of them were in college. There was a few that were outside of college, but none of us knew each other except for 2 people. So we all bonded super quickly, which was super helpful. We all got to know each other really well, and I think I'll be friends with them for the rest of my life after we all went through the same experience. It's just nice to have someone that you're able to talk to that went through the same things. So even just last week, we all video chatted and just talked about our experiences a little more, and was able to process some of the things that we were seeing and things that hit us later when we got home. So I wanted to start with this picture. I was trying to figure out a place to start this presentation, and when I was talking to Pastor Josh, we thought this might be a great place. This is the life jacket graveyard, which is on the island. It's just filled with thousands, maybe millions of life jackets, rafts, boats, debris, anything that the refugees use to get across the water from Turkey to Greece ends up in this pile here. So if I have more pictures of it, but not in this presentation, but if you search life jacket graveyard when you get home today, you can see all kinds of photos of it, and it's super interesting to see. It makes you think a lot, and one thing that made me think about the most was when someone in our group said that all the people that we have encountered so far this week, their life jackets here, and so that just really hit me that everybody that we've encountered in that camp, their life jacket is somewhere in there, or their raft that they use. So I just wanted to use this picture as a start to this presentation, is seeing what it looks like. And it looks like the end of a journey, coming across multiple countries and then leaving Turkey and going across the water. This looks like the end of the journey. But after talking with Pastor Josh, we kind of talked through the fact that this is the start of the journey for most of these people, a new journey for them to try to get a better life and leaving their old life behind. And one thing that most people don't realize is these refugees, they had good jobs before. They were doctors, lawyers, teachers, all these professions that we could have here, and they left all that behind because of the circumstances that they were in. So it makes you think about how desperate they are and how much they actually need to leave their own country. So why are there so many people in Greece right now? In March of 2016, the European Union, EU, and Turkey signed a deal that prevented refugees from reaching Europe. And mainly, it just stated that all the European countries, their borders would be closed to refugees or migrants leaving the Middle East mainly, or some Africa. And this caused a huge spike of refugees coming to Greece due to the fact that it is the closest place to Turkey, which is where most of these people are fleeing from, or that's the closest way out. And the closest part is only 4 kilometers, so a little, about 2 miles away from Turkey. And I have a picture on the next slide that shows just how close it really is. And when I was at the camp, there was about 4,750 people, but there's different seasons within the camp, so sometimes there's more people coming in, but they always take the same amount of people out. So that's when the numbers start to rise, is when they can't take any more people out, but more and more people keep coming in. So in the fall, it'll grow up to about 6,500 people, and it could get up to even more than that, depending on the circumstances. So this is just a map, and like I said, so here's mainland Greece, Athens. This is the part that most people know about. We were over here on Lesvos, and right here in the brown is Turkey. So as you can see, it's extremely close, and you can understand why most refugees are coming to that island, making most of them want to end up in a northern European country, such as Germany, Sweden, something like that. It's a lot more well developed because Greece is having its own problems with their economy. But this is the best option that they have, because if you try to make it all the way around Europe, you're going to be spotted by somebody and sent back. So the rule is there's a line in the water somewhere between Turkey and Greece. If you're halfway across the water and you're picked up by the Greece Coast Guard, then you're allowed to seek asylum in Greece. If you're picked up on the Turkey side, you have to get sent back. And then this is just one more picture. This was near the life jacket graveyard. This right here is Greece that we're standing on, and you can see Turkey in the background, just showing how close it really is. And there's Coast Guard ships patrolling around. Just, I just thought this was a cool picture to show. Just, you don't really think about how close 2 miles is, but the fact that you can see it, see the distance, I thought it was a good picture. So when I got to the camp, it was a lot different than what I expected. I didn't really know what to expect, but it was a lot different. And so the first day we were there, we did like an orientation thing, and then we went home. And as I said, I was one of 2 guys on the trip, and the men did overnight duty some nights, because for safety reasons, they don't let female participants do the overnight shifts. So the first 3 days that I was working at the camp, I worked from midnight until 8 a.m. And we basically just sat in, the first night we sat in an office to make sure no one broke in. And then every 45 minutes we would have to go check on one section, which was the vulnerable women section, mainly single women who were trying to, maybe there was someone that was coming after them. So they put them in a certain section that was locked up. And every 45 minutes we had to go make sure there was no men in there or anybody that wasn't supposed to be. So that was the first night. And that was when I was like, is this really, I didn't really think this is what I would be doing. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't really see this as like doing any work. But then the person I was with, Curtis, the other guy on the trip, we talked about it afterwards, and we kind of talked about how the reason that we're there is because if no one's there, then something will happen probably, and things have happened, and that's why we need someone there. So it seemed a little more important after that. It was still very hard to work the overnight shift. I slept during most of the day while the girls were working, and then we went back to the midnight shift. And so the second night, I was standing outside. When I went down to check the gate the first time, there was a guy standing outside the gate, and he was just sitting there drinking tea. So he wasn't hurting anybody. He was allowed to like be outside the gate that I was at. And I decided to start talking to him just because there weren't many people there since it was the middle of the night. So I wanted to just talk to somebody and see what it was like. And so I was talking to him, and I found out he was 23 years old. He was from Afghanistan. And he'd been there for 5 months, I want to say, at the time. And I was able to talk with him. We played cards. He he brought me food from his place that he lives. He brought me food and tea, and we played cards and talked until 4 in the morning that day. So it was super impactful just to be able to talk to somebody. And then the next night was our last midnight shift for that week, and I went back and I told him I would be there the next day, so I was. And him and one of his friends, it was a woman from Somalia, I believe she was 23, and we just sat there and played cards and talked for a while. And I found out a lot about their stories and just being able to talk to them. As workers, we weren't allowed to ask personal questions, but if they brought it up, then we were allowed to have a conversation with them. So they brought it up, so I was able to hear a little bit about their story. The woman, she was 23, like I said, and she had just been accepted to leave the camp. And so when that happens, if you're accepted to leave, you can then travel. They give you the resources to travel to Athens, and then you can get to mainland Greece. And then from there, you're basically bound to Greece. But if you become a Greece citizen, you can get 90-day visas to go to other countries. So that was one of the options for them. But she was not leaving the camp yet due to the fact that her 19-year-old brother had not been accepted to leave yet. So she was waiting for him to leave. But talking to the woman, she said that her goal, I was asking her about her career plans and stuff. And she said that her goal was to become a lawyer in America one day. And so I just thought it was super impactful that those people that are stuck in the camp for months on end are still able to have goals and dreams and still be able to work towards something. So that was just something that was really cool to see. And that last night when I left, when the guy went to bed from playing cards, he came up to me and said, "Thank you for talking." It was something that I guess just got taken for granted. They don't have many people to talk to. They're stuck with the same people all the time, all day. So just to be able to talk to him, he said he was super thankful that I was able to talk to him. He said it made him feel really happy, so that was sort of relieving to me that I was able to impact him in some way. And at the end of the trip, on my last day, I saw him as I was leaving, and he kept walking with us, me and Curtis, the two people that were working with him. And he kept walking with us as we left, and he kept saying bye. And it was hard to say goodbye to him, even though we only knew him for 2 weeks and only saw him a few times. But it was super impactful to see just how much it was able to touch him through me just being able to talk to him and give him something to talk to. So you can't take pictures in camp, but this was one of the pictures that we got in camp of me. They brought kittens, one of the overnight shifts. So one of the overnight shifts, we were in charge of watching these kittens for part of the time as well. And at about 2 a.m., I was out talking to this man from Afghanistan, and I got a call on the walkie-talkie from Curtis, the person I was working with, and he goes, "Nate, this cat won't stop me after. What do I do?" And I thought he was going to be something serious, that he had a problem, but he had a problem or something. But the cat wouldn't stop meowing, I guess. So we went back and gave it some milk, and then went to bed until about 7 a.m. And then by then we were awake and we were up anyway. So they were fine. So that was one of the few pictures that I have of in camp, just due to the fact that. And at first it seems tough, because it's hard to explain everything. But I also thought about this is someone's house, this is all that they have in their life, so just to come in and take pictures would not really be appropriate for anybody. So there's not many pictures of in camp, there's 2 of them. So here's a bit of a layout of the camp. As you can see, it's not very large considering there's almost 5,000 people in there. So it's broken up into different sections. There's teenage boys section, so there's all teenage boys that are there by themselves, which is extremely difficult to think about. I can imagine being anywhere really by myself, but especially in a refugee camp without knowing where your family is. I couldn't imagine. So there's 2 sections down in here that are all teenage boys that live together. And then there's a vulnerable women section, as I said. And then in the main part of the camp, there's a family section where normally families get housed, and then a single men section where single men live together. So the second day or after the second week, when we were done with the overnight shifts, we went to the day shift, and I was in charge of doing housing for that part of the day. And I didn't think it would be that difficult at first. I thought most people would be pretty accepting, realizing that people are in the same situation they are. And so I thought it'd be easy to move people in. We just hang up some blankets to create a wall within their box. And then, but it was very difficult, it turned out, because since these people had so little, they didn't really want to give it up what they had, even to create more space for another family. So that was a lot more difficult than the overnight shift. Me and Curtis said to the girls that were working, we wish we could go back to the overnight shift after dealing with some of the incidents that we had. But I was also glad that I was able to work housing, because I got to see what it was truly like in the camp every single day, and the fact that these things happen every day, just trying to house people. And they just got to the camp after the long journey across the Middle East. The last thing they want to do is spend a night in outside, so they need to get housing very quickly. So it's super important to try to find somewhere for them to live, and it's also hard to find ISO boxes that they are accepting of them, because some countries that are there, they don't get along. So that's another part of it, is finding a place for them to stay with people that won't fight them or steal their things, because that has happened before. So I'll probably say ISO box a few more times. That's basically what they live in, and just think of it as a shipping container with a door, and then there's 2 windows and an AC unit that works about half the time in there. And that can be split up between 4 families alone, or 8 men. And it can get up to 12 to 15 people per ISO box during the heavy incoming arrival season. So just when I say ISO box, that's what I mean. It's about a 30 feet by 10 feet shipping container, and that's what they have to live in. If they don't get that, they have tents that are given out, and the tents have no insulation or AC. So the ISO box is better than the tent, but they're both extremely difficult to live in. So when I say ISO box, this is what I'm talking about. So doing the housing, there was a lot of really cool yet very difficult experiences that I had, some of the most impactful. And on the last day I was in the camp, I was working on a housing job with one other person. He was a kid from South Carolina who was there doing the same thing that we did, and he was just their group also came. And the reason that I was working with him was because he spoke French in college, he took French classes. So the group that we were dealing with, the ISO box that we were dealing with, was all French-speaking people from the Congo. So I didn't know any French. So I felt a little useless, but at the same time I was able to be there to support this kid that I went to the ISO box with. So when we showed up, we had to move in it was a family's ISO box, and there was 4 families living in it already, and we had to move one more family of 3 in. It was a mom, dad, and a 4-year-old girl. And we had to move this one family in, so we had to create enough space, and to say the least, that they were not very accepting. The people that were already living there, they were not very accepting of move-in. So talking to these people in French, we were using Google Translate, because he knew French, but he didn't know enough to completely carry out exactly what we wanted. So between Google Translate and getting other refugees to come and try to help us, it took us 5 hours to try to move this family in, and we had to get the police multiple times. We told them that if they didn't get it figured out between themselves, that we would just move everybody out of the ISO box and rearrange it ourselves. And they said they could do it, so we let them go and rearrange it, and then we got back 10 minutes later and nothing moved. So we tried to talk to them, and It took us 5 hours, like I said, and by the end of it, we finally just got them, and these people weren't budging. And it seemed very selfish at first, and the more and more I thought about it, I just kept getting frustrated. And then a few days after I got back from the trip, it more so hit me the fact that that was all that those families that lived there had. So just to take 8 inches from them, that's everything that they have when they're already living in a 4 foot by 4 foot space. It's not so selfish to try to get everything you can. And they're already living in these terrible conditions. So the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I could see just how difficult life in camp was and how it truly was hard to live in these conditions. And we take it for granted. Multiple times when moving people in, people would tell us, you don't live here, come sleep one night in this place, like just to try to prove to us. And all we could say really was, we understand what you're saying, but we can't understand the situation that you're in. And that was hard to do, just try to sympathize with them, but at the same time, no one knows what it's like to live in those conditions. So that was very difficult. So we finally got that family moved in at 3:30 in the afternoon, and our shift ended around 5 p.m. So me and this kid KJ, we finally went to go get lunch, and we were sitting down for about 10 minutes, and then on our walkie-talkies, we heard that there was a fire on the other side of the camp, and so everyone had to run back in, and so we got to eat a little bit, hopefully, and then we ran in, and we were walking towards the meeting point, and then these 2 guys that were working just handed us fire extinguishers and told us to run to the back of the camp and go help with the fire. So by the time we got to the back of the camp, the fire was put out and there wasn't really any damage. It was just in the trees behind the camp. So we had to walk the fire extinguishers back. But it was a pretty eventful last day, to say the least. And then I had another housing situation that was a little bit earlier in the trip, and it was by far the most impactful thing of my trip. So I was working on it for about 4 hours. We had to move one man. He was an 18-year-old kid from Syria, and we had to move him into a single-man ISO box with 8 other people that were already living in there, and they were from Syria and Palestine. So we thought it'd be pretty easy to move them in. So we get to the ISO box, and they said, no, there's no room. But there was space that we could have fit a bed in, but we didn't have any beds to give out, which was part of the problem. And so that was one of their complaints, was that it wasn't fair to him to put him in this ISO box if he didn't get a bed. And so we talked to him for a while. The police were involved for a bit. And it got to the point where they were just, and also some of the families spoke and some of the men spoke English. These guys did not speak too much English, just a few key words that they understood, and they understood most of the stuff. They only said a few key phrases in English, so it was very hard to communicate. That was one of the things I learned the most about too, was communication, just how important it is, and just how easy it is to talk in English, but it's very difficult when you're trying to explain something in a language that they don't understand. And so there was a lot of screaming at this point going on, and they were just shouting at us, the police. And I was working with the kid on our trip, Curtis, again. And we were trying to just get this one man to move in, and they were just shouting. And so I thought it would kind of escalate a bit more. And I was one of the men that was in the ISO box. He was like sitting off to the side, and I just went over and talked to him. And I was just like trying to get out of the situation for a little bit, take a break. And he like had his hair spiked up, and I was like joking about him with my hair and stuff, and like just trying to make conversation with him. And so I was like joking around him, and then more and more the men that were living there stopped yelling and started just talking. And we were all just having a conversation about, I don't even remember now, but we were just talking. And so we were just talking for about 5 minutes. And they said, if you want, you can come back to dinner with us and eat dinner with us in our ISO box. They were eating in like 10 minutes, so I said, okay, I'll come back in 10 minutes. I figured we still had to move this man into the ISO box, so maybe it would help I just went and had a conversation with them while eating dinner and just trying to be a part of their experience. And so 10 minutes went by and I went back and I was just sitting on their beds in their ISO box with them and just talking to them. And I said this was the most impactful part of my trip, and it was because I realized how similar they were to us. They were from Syria and Palestine, places I've never been, but just talking to them, they liked soccer, and I was talking to them about watching soccer, and they liked listening to American music, and they were like singing, I was singing American songs for them, like they were just listening to things that I listened to as well. So just being there and realizing just how similar we were, they were just in a terrible situation from the start of their lives. That was why it was the most impactful thing of my trip, just the fact that I was able to share that experience with them and just talk to them for 30 minutes, and then we all sat on the ground on a blanket. I have a picture of what it would look like. So we just all sat around on a blanket, and they put some pork in a like crock pot type thing, and then we got pieces of like tortilla pita bread, and then we just dipped it in and got pork and ate it. And I just ate lunch or dinner with 8 men from Syria and Palestine, which is an experience that I'll probably never have again in my life, but it was something that I'll always remember just because of how intense the situation was and how I was able to just calm down, just like that, just by being friendly and just trying to be, almost not fit in, but just try to be there for them and try to sympathize with them a little bit and tell them, yes, this is a terrible situation, but we also have to move one more person in just so that they're not in a terrible situation as well, and they can at least have a place to stay with a roof over their head. So I ate dinner with them and was able to talk to them for a while. And so we went and we found a bed, actually. By the time I was done eating, our housing director said that she had found a bed to give them. And so me and the kid Curtis, we went back with the bed. And so I thought it would be all easy and that they would be good to go. And when we got there with the bed, they erupted again and were so mad. And it got to the point where they were shouting at Curtis, and they said that they would not move the bed in for him because of the fact that he yelled at them before, and they said they would only move the bed in for me. So I was like, okay. So it got extremely intense, and we were just trying to just help them, but they were just still mad at this one person that was there. And this is where it got extremely intense. The one man that I had talked to the most, he grabbed a pair of scissors and started cutting himself on his arm in front of us. And the fact that I was able to see that, it didn't really hit me until after I got back. And I saw he had scars on his arm, but I just thought it was from something else. But I think seeing that there, and I kind of froze for a minute, and then I just kind of jumped in and grabbed his arm and looked him in the eyes and said we can't do this right now, and tried to just calm him down. But the fact that he was that worked up about something like this, that was what it was like living in Greece, in this refugee camp at all times. And so I told Curtis I could take care of him, I would help him get the bed moved in. So Curtis left, and I got this bed moved in finally, and then they were fine again, and they invited me to go swimming with them in this one town that night, which I'm not allowed to do, and I probably wouldn't have gone, but well. So they were friendly again, and it just kind of, their hospitality, even through the intenseness, was something that touched me. And the fact that so many people in that camp were super hospitable was just something to see, because they don't have a lot. And kids would bring us apples or tea or bread as we were sitting there working. And so the fact that they had so little and were able to give stuff to people that were helping them was super impactful to see. And so on the last day that I was in camp, I went back to that ISO box with the men, and the man that we moved in was doing fine. He was there with them, and he was fine. So that was encouraging to see. But I talked to all of them, and I said I was going back to America to live my life how I had been. And some of them said to take them with them, and it was just to see how desperate they were to get out of that situation was really tough to see. And I said bye to them and shook all their hands, and they all kissed me on the cheek, which is like part of their culture. So that was super cool. And I wish I could have had a way to communicate with them, but at the same time, I didn't want to give up my personal information to them, so it was tough. But I wish there was a way to communicate with them. Because there was some, even though I only met him one day and then talked to him one other time, there was just a memory that I'll always have, that eating dinner with them and just being able to talk to them just as people, as the same, was super interesting to me, and that was why it was the most impactful thing, just realizing that they're just like us. And that was something that opened my eyes up to that while I was there. Just all these people are just in terrible situations, but they're so similar. There were so many boys there that played soccer, and I remember playing soccer growing up and just thinking about that. So that was one of my biggest takeaways. I think that's my last picture. But so overall, what I got out of the trip was just the fact that you can just giving someone compassion and being there for them can really make an impact on them. And you sometimes don't realize it. In the office, on the overnight shift that we were in, on this whiteboard, someone wrote a quote up. It was one of my favorite things that I saw while I was there. It said, "Don't let the world change your smile, but let your smile change the world." And I just thought that was a super great quote to think about, even when we're just here in Hanover. And that's another thing, is that I was able to go to Greece and see this, but now that I'm back home, I'm trying to keep thinking in the same ways, even though it's not as bad of a situation. There's people that are living in poverty and living in tough situations here in Hanover, here in Pennsylvania, in the United States. So just the fact that you don't have to go across the world to see these things and to be able to help people and just give them some sort of compassion was something that struck me and I got out of the trip. So I'd encourage anybody, if they want to try to help out in any way, just giving someone a person to talk to, showing compassion at all times goes a lot farther than what you might think to most people. That's about it. Take questions, I guess. Yeah.
You said that the people have to get accepted to be able to leave. What do they have to do to?
Yeah. So basically, when they get to camp, it takes probably about 8 months to even set up an interview, and you get interviewed by someone in the European Union or the UN, one of those two. I can't remember exactly. So that's who sets up these interviews, and they determine if I don't know what it takes to get out. I don't know if they're looking for a certain criteria or what exactly happens. But then, so once you set up your interview, even after the interview, I talked to some of the refugees, and even after the interview, it can take up to 4 to 5 months to even hear a decision. So then that even delays it even longer. So they could be there, most of them could be there for at least a year, depending on how long everything takes. So to get an interview, it's a big deal. So the one time when we were there, there was a guy that just got accepted to leave, and he went back to his ISO-box and was near where we were, and you could just hear everybody cheering and clapping for him because they were so happy that he was able to get accepted and leave. And I think they said 150 people a week is the number. So about 150 people a week get accepted. So just think about that fact that the more people are coming in and only 150 a week are still going out. So yeah, the acceptance process is long, but at the end they can then see what happens. I'm not sure on that, and I'm not too sure how many times they get accepted. I'm not too sure how that all happens. That'd be something I have to look up. There was no one that I talked to that hadn't been accepted. Most of the people I talked to just hadn't even gotten an interview yet. So that was like where they were at. It just takes time to do that. So I'm not sure exactly.
Does it hit serve from a central point, or
What is
do they live in the box and have room for sleeping, getting meals up there?
Yeah, so when they get there, they get like a ID badge, and it shows like how many meals per week, and like depending on if it's a family or a single man or how many people are in their family, they get an allowance of how many meals. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, but I don't know if they're able to get every single meal. And then like some families with little kids get diapers, so they get like a certain amount of diapers per week. So there was multiple times that families would come up and say we need diapers, but they had already gotten theirs for the week, and we had to say no. Like there was nothing we could do because then we would run out for other families. So that's really tough to see, is just how much they get. And I believe, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe the UN gives them 20 euros a week while they're there, which is not a lot of money. It's about $20 a week. So that's what they get from the UN, and then the food and stuff is provided through that. And just to go off the like food and diapers and families, there's a lot of pregnant women that come to the camp, surprisingly. And at first I thought it might have been because if women have their child in Greece, I thought it would become a Greek citizen, but that's only an American thing or a certain country thing. Like that's not like that in Europe. So that child is still a citizen of whatever country they were from. So I'm not too sure exactly why so many pregnant women come across and make the journey, but I guess it's just in that situation they just have to get out of their country. So there was women that were coming across 8 months pregnant into the camp and making that journey. So that was something else that was interesting. No, I don't think so. They don't get much when they arrive. And that was one of the... Yeah, that was like... Yeah, it's hard to make it to America. And that was one other thing is that kind of frustrated me a little bit while I was there. It's just the organization, between all the organizations that work there, there's a lot of different people that give out different things. So like some people give out food, some organizations give out like shoes and clothes, and none of those people, the refugees that get there, that's the last thing they're thinking about is where to go for these. And sometimes they can only get these materials as a new arrival, like when they first get there. So if they're there for a week and then think, oh, my shoes got ruined coming across, they can't go get shoes then because they had to ask for them as a new arrival. So just the organization between everybody that works in there is a little frustrating to see sometimes, and so that was just something that was hard to see.
What's the funding for the isoboxes and the tents?
So the UN provides the tents. I don't know who funds the ISO boxes, and like even the materials that go into them. Like there was constantly lights going out and electrical problems, so I don't know where exactly they get that money from. Like they asked when I donated that $500 or 500 euros, they asked me like, do I want to put it to something specific? And I just said to put it to where it needed it most. So I'm assuming like some of that money could have gone to ISO boxes, like donations. The tents are provided by the UN, and once they're set up, they don't really get any maintenance done to them, so they're just kind of stuck with what they have. Yeah.
Is there any religion happening? Are the Islamic people able to observe their religion and any Christian services?
Yeah, so actually when I was there, it was Ramadan, and so when I was on the overnight shifts, there would be like large prayer groups going on for Ramadan for the Muslim people. So while I was there, I saw that happening, but we weren't allowed to actually bring up religion to them. If they brought it up to us, we were allowed to talk about it, but like we weren't allowed to bring Bibles or anything along those lines. We weren't we weren't there to persuade them or anything. We were just allowed to talk to them. It was more so, we kind of talked about, it was more so just to like plan something. Like it takes a while to walk through it, and being through a traumatic experience like that, it's not really our job to like, try to sway them right away or anything like that. So we weren't allowed to bring up religion, but we went to a church service, the one when we were there on a Sunday, and we went to a church service in the morning, and there was people that from camp that walked or took a bus to the church service, and it was a Christian church service. So there's people in the camp that were from Afghanistan and Syria that have then turned Christian, but then there's also people that are still Muslim and practice that there.
In your experience, what was the perception of Americans in that area?
So there was a few people I talked to, and they asked me a lot about why America's so like bad to Iran and Afghanistan and countries like that. And there's not really much. I was just like, I'm not sure. There was nothing much I could say. But even one thing that was interesting was Greek police officers were asking me about it. And so like even they were concerned, like wondering why. Like, they were saying all this stuff about politics and stuff. And then this wasn't in the camp, but I was in a taxi and in Athens when we were flying out of Athens, and the taxi driver there, he did not know America, and I was talking to him about the whole political system, and he didn't really understand exactly why it was set up the way it was. So I was like just trying to talk to him. But there's some people that really are against it, but then there's people that most of the kids I felt like were the most like accepting, even if they didn't know we were from America, just seeing help as someone that didn't look like them. And a few of them asked me, they're like, oh, are you from America? And I said, yes. And they were like, oh, good. And like, so it was more so the kids that were accepting. I felt like some of the men had like knew enough that they didn't enjoy America. But some of the kids thought it was like super cool to meet from someone from America, just seeing that we were able to help them, even though we weren't looked the same. It was just they were more accepting of it, I thought.
Nathan, you mentioned that most of these families or individuals can be there 12 months, maybe even longer, depending on how long it goes. And someone had asked a question about the condition of the buildings. You had shared a story with me when we met this week about someone who came to try and get some nails to do some general upkeep. I mean, are those sorts of things provided for them if they want to try and do repairs?
So that was one of the other frustrating things is we aren't able to give out many supplies as Euro Relief. Like that's the organization that gives out most of these supplies. So a man came and asked for nails, and Pastor Josh said, and we weren't able to give them out. And he had a serious problem with his tent that he was trying to fix, and we weren't able to give them out due to the fact that if someone comes and just asks for nails for a reason that's not with their tent, then we can't give them out to them. So it's more of like if we give them out to one person, then we can't give them out to other people. And like multiple times, people came up to us and asked for water, and we weren't able to give out like bottles of water at the time because it wasn't like the right time to give out the water. They had to wait till one of the meal times. So that was one of the other hard things, was just not being able to give out. And then another problem was some of the the volunteers that were there. They did give out stuff just out of like compassion and empathy, and it would be hard not to say no. But these people did give it out, so then people would come to us and be like, "Oh, he said we could get nails from you guys," so and then they show up and we can't give them nails. So that was a hard thing for sure. Just seeing how limited their supplies were. Mainly Euro Relief. They fix everything there for them if they can. And then there's an electrical team there. But like I said, the organization between all these people, no one really knows who to go for what. So that's difficult.
You had mentioned that some people left the camp to go to the church in the spring period. So are they allowed to leave the camp?
Yeah, so everybody in the camp's allowed to leave. They just have to stay on the island of Lesvos. So they wouldn't be able to like fly to Athens or something for the weekend. They have to stay on Lesvos Island. It was a little surprising because a few people that I talked to, they said that they wanted to get smuggled out of Lesvos and try to make it even further then. So then that creates like more problems than if they're willing to do that again. If they were willing to do that to get over to Lesvos, I would assume that they would be willing to do it again. So I can see how it would create some problems, but no, they're allowed to like go into town and stuff, but they don't have much money, so it's more just to see and walk around and try to experience normal life.
You said that a lot of pregnant women came over, and I was wondering what the medical care was. And you said that also that some of them were doctors, and did they allow them to practice, to use their skills, or were they just kind of like a limbo waiting?
Yeah, so the people that were in camp, they didn't really do anything. They didn't have any sort of job. One guy I know, he does haircuts for free, and so like people could just come and get haircuts from him. So I'm assuming he was a barber of some sort, and he would just sit there and cut hair all day because he has nothing else to do. And so that like some of them were able to, like some of them were able to like build things. So one guy that I was talking to, he was like making something out of wood and like building his table. So some of them do it on their own, but the camp doesn't provide anything for them really. But the women that come across pregnant, they do get taken to a hospital when they're like close to giving birth. And the reason that we don't have beds for most of the people is because women that are pregnant get first like dibs on the bed. So normally they save them for the women that are coming across that are pregnant. So yeah, they're taken care of, but it's still like, most of them complain that it was too hot because the AC doesn't work all the time. So there's like a lot of problems within the ISO boxes with these women.
So Nathan, how challenging was it for you to find, go to the right people to get the things that you need to help, you mentioned the police and the medical, things like that?
Yeah, so it was difficult at first just because like I had no idea what it was, where anything was. Luckily, what I was doing, I didn't really have to go to anybody except for the police with the housing. And then like on the overnight shift, me and Curtis were the only two people there besides the police. So like, luckily with that, like I didn't have to deal with that too much. But there was a few people I talked to that said like they were just super disoriented at the medical area, like trying to get people the right medicine and communicate it, not speaking English, like to people that don't speak English. So like there was a few people that were in my group that said they took people to the doctor's office, and it was so difficult to figure out what exactly to do or where to take people exactly, just to get the right stuff for them. And it was hard to explain it in another language. So that was, yeah, I didn't personally like experience, but I know there's people that said like it was super hard to find things that they needed. Of the refugees, not too many. Some of them, most of them knew like basic words, phrases, stuff like that. But there was very few. We had translators with us, but there was only about 4 of them. So 4 translators for 5,000 people in the camp. You can't talk to everybody like perfectly all the time. So there weren't many English-speaking refugees. A lot of them spoke Arabic or Farsi, which is like the native language of Afghanistan. So.
What is it like coming back? So you come back to America and you're like back in like, so is that an adjustment then coming from there and coming back and like having that American access sort of all around you?
Yeah. That was like something that I talked with my group when we video chatted. Like it was, someone said like they felt like they weren't doing anything impactful at the time, like just living their normal life, and they were just living normal and didn't have to deal with these conditions anymore. So like some of the people I talked to said they struggle with it. I felt like for me personally, I was able to like use it to be more joyful. Like not that I was a super negative person anyways, but even more positive than before. Just because seeing like little kids and even adults being able to be joyful and joke around in the camp, it made me think like, why can't I be more joyful in my everyday life if they can do that in a terrible living condition?
You talked about the funding source for the training tent. Like the day-to-day food services, like how does that funding source happen?
So I know I don't know where exactly they get the food from, but some catering place. I don't know how they fund it, but they come in the morning at like 6 a.m. and then the same people come at lunch and dinner. And I even saw people lining up 2 hours beforehand just to wait in line to get food, just to be near the front, and they have nothing else to do, so they figure they might as well stand there and wait for their food. So I'm not too sure exactly how it's funded. I know they get some truck to come and just bring loads of it. So I'm assuming I didn't have any of the food from the camp, mainly due to the fact that I was doing the overnight shifts half the time, so they didn't have any food there. And then most of the times in camp, I didn't even have time to eat really, so I went to a shop quick and just got an apple. So I didn't have food. I'm assuming it's not the best, considering it's just coming in like large quantities, like mass production of it. So I'm not sure exactly how it's funded. What was the second part?
The types of foods that
Oh yeah. So like we all registered with Euro Relief, so like that's who most of the people volunteer with. So there was a group from South Carolina that was like a Christian school group that came, and they were basically doing the same thing we did. We were just with another big organization. Then there was a group of Mennonite people that were there working with Euro Relief, and they had been there for 3 months. They stayed longer. Their like organization, I think it's called I-58, if you look it up. It's like a Mennonite group that they like stay longer, so they stayed like 3 to 6 months normally. And then there was one girl that was there for 3 years. Like she's worked in the camp for 3 years. Her and her fiance live on the island, and they go to the camp every single day. They have like 1 day off every 2 weeks, but they're working constantly at the camp. So she's on the point where she like is able to talk to people pretty well, and she like just knows a lot about what's going on because she's been there for so long. So yeah, there's a lot of different groups that come in, but most of them go through Euro Relief. And then there's like Greek. There's Greek volunteer groups because most of the people in Greece, they either like when we told them like what we were there for, they either were like, oh great, that's really good that you're helping, or they kind of see the camp as like just hurting their country even more. So like there's like half and half of the Greek population, so half of them like really want to help and like do things to volunteer and help and stuff and think it's good. And then some of them just think it's a hindrance to the country more and more, with the economy already being really bad. Yeah.
what happens when someone dies? Do they basically do the same thing, like as a citizen, like when someone dies, or do they do it different?
Like in the camp.
Yeah.
Luckily I wasn't there when anyone died that I know of, so I'm not sure exactly. I know there was a fire in the camp a few months ago, and people died in that, and like buildings got burned down, and like people lost all their stuff, the little stuff that they did have, like entire buildings got burned down. So I'm not sure exactly how that works. I would assume they do it similar and try to respect everybody, but I'm not sure exactly how.
Were you aware of any Islamic groups there?
Not that I know. And that was like something that one person said to me, well not me, but they said to one of our group members, and they talked about it with us, and they said like they see Christians come a lot, but they never see anyone that practices their own religion. So I think that can be part of the reason why people switch over, is they see that Christians are willing to take time out of their life and willing to come show compassion and help them. Because I didn't see any Islamic people there.
Do your own group stay as a unit, or do you ever get together with all the other groups?
So when we were working, there was probably like 20 to 20. So like my group was there because there was 11 people, but then there'd be like 2 other groups as well. Like we worked with the people from South Carolina one day. We worked with people from France one day. That was like a Christian organization in France. So like we get to come together with other groups a little bit. So we got to bond with some people from other countries, which is cool. But we stay with our group for everything pretty much, and then we work with some other groups here and there.
When the people
Yeah, so, like one of the situations that I was dealing with the housing thing, the man was diagnosed with like PTSD, so he showed us his box of medicine. He was using that as a way to like not have anybody move in with him. He was like, I have PTSD. And he showed us his paperwork and medicine and everything. So they get treated for mental illnesses as well as physical illnesses. So I didn't have to take anybody to the doctor, but one of the people in our group did, and she took him down there, and then the doctor talked to the worker, the volunteer, and told her everything that needs to be done for this person taking his medicine and what he needs to do, and then she had to tell the person that was taking the medicine, so she kind of had to relay the information on. So yeah, they do have medical services for people. So financial support as well as prayers, thoughts and prayers. Definitely couldn't have done it without everybody. And if you ever want to talk to me about it anymore, I'll be around at church this summer. You can shoot me an email. I'd be willing to talk about it because I highly recommend doing this or anything like this to anybody out there. And even if you think you're not able to, there's definitely things that you are able to do, even in this area, just to help out and see change. So, yeah, thanks for coming.